Okay, you guys, I'm a little bit nervous for this video. I'm just gonna show it to you. Okay, let's say I'm making a website about guns. We're making backfire.tv, right? Well, what if I just get an Ahrefs subscription? I go to Site Explorer, and then I type my major competition. I click on organic search, scroll all the way to the bottom. I click order by traffic. Voila. I've now just taken an individual blogger's site. I wouldn't want to do this with a major competitor that's just going to crush you on everything. But this is just some other person's blog. And I now know what their highest trafficked posts are. And I could go after them and start competing there. So this raises so many questions. So many questions. We have to talk about ethics majorly here. We have to talk about how effective this is going to be, some nuances and how to implement this properly. But first, does this even work? Well, yeah, it works, and it works really well. The reason is this. If we're talking about a blog that has enough traffic, this is going to work pitifully on a site with, 10,000 page views or fewer, right? But if you have a site with enough traffic, Ahrefs has enough data that they can pretty well tell which articles are going to bring in the most traffic for you. I checked many of our websites and the actual how much organic traffic we get to those posts compared to this. And it's really, really good. When you first see it, it's like, everybody can see this, right? I looked on one of our sites that has 25,000 page views a month. And I would say it got all of our top 10 pages, but it didn't get all the numbers right. But all the top 10 were in the top 20 that it listed here, that kind of thing, right? So it's not perfect, but it's really close. And the more traffic to the article, the better it's going to be at telling. So this is effective. We have to make sure, however, that we aren't just taking successful sites. Then you as a brand new blogger are trying to compete against their best content when you're a little tiny little site. You're going to get crushed using this technique. That's why we're considering this an advanced technique. And we need to really be careful in how we use this. But we've got to talk about the ethics of this too. So imagine you had a food truck, and there are dozens of food trucks in this big parking lot in a downtown area. You sell tacos, and business is terrible. Nobody comes to your taco truck. Every day, nothing. You look at all the other food trucks, and you say, man, there are 3 hamburger food trucks, and they have a line 10 people deep all the time. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep selling tacos? Or are you going to say, I'm going to start selling hamburgers too. It seems to be working good. See, we seem to recognize in business that seeing customer demand for something and then choosing to compete for that same demand is not really an ethical problem, right? Now, would it be wrong for me to sneak into their trailer and steal their secret recipe and start selling that? Well, yes. And that's why if I came here and I took his article on the 6.5 PRC and I took all his subheadings and I rewrote major portions of it, etc., that would be extremely unethical. Very, very wrong in my mind. Not even close to the line. But go back to the food truck. Just recognizing customer demand and choosing to compete for it. If you can make a better hamburger, then yeah, you should get the customers. There's nothing unethical about Burger King saying, oh boy, the Chick-fil-A sandwich is doing really well. Maybe we should have a chicken sandwich too, right? That's okay. And so this is the technique. We are essentially seeing what's successful on their site and we're going after those topics. So now let's go into the details of how exactly we could implement this on a site, assuming that we're the smaller site. Okay. So we're going to go back to Site Explorer. So let's first decide why Ahrefs. Well, it's because I spent a ton of money on a whole bunch of SEO tools. Everybody in the market I took a good look at. And honestly, Ahrefs is just a step ahead of all of them. And they don't even have an affiliate program. So I have nothing, I'm not, there's nothing in it for me. And we've said for a couple of years now, there was a time where we really didn't use SEO tools hardly at all. But we've said for a couple of years now that we do use SEO tools. We just don't use it for search volume, and we hardly at all use it for ideation. That's why we've taught the process that we have. That's right, that's what we use. That is, we feel, the most reliable method, even assuming that you have, even if you did have this tool, I would still use that. But there are some really neat things that it does. And so let's talk about it. All right, so we're on Ahrefs, and it's expensive, by the way. The Big Game Hunting blog, enter. So now we got to go to organic search. A lot of people will question, well, why are we looking at the top pages rather than the top organic keywords? Well, one, the data seems to be a little bit better because we're taking many different streams coming to that article, and so we're better able to unearth which ones are better than others. And so I think that's better. Also, it clues you into what you could write that could rank for many different adjacent terms with one article. And so there's definitely value at looking at organic keywords here as well, but I feel like the real gold here is the top pages. Now you have to remember to click here to rank by traffic in descending order. We don't want to pay any attention at all to this number. We don't want to pay any attention to this number at all. It does matter what position they're in and if they're getting a snippet. That matters. But we aren't going to pay attention to traffic at all. What I don't want you to see you do is go into your search analysis now and say, oh, yeah, the search volume for this is over 5,000. Please don't do that. It will lead you to a bad result. If you know this is a pretty successful site in your industry, but it's not massive that you just can't compete with, if you know it's relatively successful, I would just put in your search analysis document that all of these are 10,000 plus in terms of volume, because you know they're successful enough that it's propping up this site. And it means there's good competition because this is their best stuff. And so I'd probably just put 10,000 plus on your search analysis sheet for anything you get with this method, where we're sniping the competition. So how much then would you take here? You know, as I mentioned, I wouldn't feel comfortable about just ripping off somebody's search analysis, but I am definitely going to look and say, yeah, it's these cartridge profiles that's bringing in all the traffic. And you'll even see some that, hey, that works really well. What I wouldn't do, though, I again would feel that's crossing a line, is, if there's, 10 reasons I hate the 300 blackout. I'm not going to go write 13 reasons I hate the 300 blackout. Again, kind of feels like I'm taking their work. I'm not okay with that. Not cool. And again, this is every ethical question. It's going to come right down to the individual, right down to the individual. And so you make your choice on what it is. I just feel like it's my responsibility to show you this technique because everybody's using it against us. And so we need to understand it. If you choose to use it, cool. Decide not to, cool too. So on this though, the question is how far down is the keyword still valuable? And here, like, oh man, this is a big site. Like even his 50th post, if we were to go by traffic, we say is getting 627 page views a month. But we're not going to that. We're just ignoring this entirely. What I do care about is how many total pages he has on the website, so that I can get an idea of, probably the top third of the posts are the ones that are really, really working. But if we're saying, this guy's only got 40 blog posts on there, something like that, and you remember there are 50 per page, so this is 300. But let's say this is, he's only got 40, 90 blog posts. Maybe I'm only interested in like the top 10 that I even am looking at sniping. That's valuable. Now, let's get a lot cooler, right? Now we're going to go over to the side here and we're going to click competing domains. This is the biggest competition in the search rankings for the topics that the Big Game Hunting blog has written about. So now I could also go to Chuck Hawkes and I go to overview, I go to organic, I go all the way to the bottom, and we repeat the same process. You could, I mean, just in a period of an hour or two, you could really see what's working for everybody in your industry. Just please remember, if you're going to use this technique, that you don't want to take a brand new blog and compete against the best of the best. That's a horrible idea. That's why we teach our whole search analysis process. This is an advanced technique. This is one you want to use when your site is established. You know, when it's 8 months, a year old, and you have some links yourself, and you're good at writing content now. Now you're a good writer because you've had all that practice. Suddenly, this is a really cool technique. But in the beginning, I really want you to just get used to this technique if you even choose to go this route. It's expensive to get an Ahrefs subscription. But if we choose to go this route, I'm going to want to snipe some of the lower ones down here, and I would take every single article, click in on it, and what you're trying to really identify is a post that kind of stinks, but is still getting a good portion of their traffic. So, you know, click through and don't compete against their mega posts. We want to compete against their stuff that's like, man, that's amazing that brought any traffic. That kind of stinks. And so we want to go after that. Another technique that can be valuable is this, where we see, wow, this site is gigantic. I mean, absolutely gigantic. Look, 61 pages of content with 50, whoops. Oh, I can't, I have to pay to a higher subscription tier if I'm going to see that. But this site's ginormous, right? He's got a ton of content. I wonder if he has a forum on there or something. And yet, this one post at the top, bringing in 9% of the whole thing. 9%. Woo! And this one is very competitive. It would be hard to beat that, frankly. But it does tell me what's working out there. And I could go all out crazy and try to create a better resource if I think I could serve those customers better. Again, if I see a big line in the hamburger line and I say, I bet I could come up with a cool hamburger recipe, and I do my own work, I do my own marketing, I'm not taking anything from them other than just seeing that there's customer demand there, then yeah, I'm going to go after that. But don't start now and go after these. I know some of you are going to see this technique and be like, forget all that beginner stuff. I'm going to go straight to this. And you're just going to get crushed in every different ranking. So follow the system, but you can start to do some sniping here where you see just a poor resource. One more rule with this technique. You have to promise me you will not use it for evil. And that means never ever use this against another Project 24 member. We're all on the same team, right? Like, snipe somebody else's site, right? We need a place that we can go in our community and ask questions, show people our blog posts, and get feedback and things like that. And so this isn't cool. We've booted tons of people out from Project 24 when they're stealing somebody else's search analysis or taking subtitles, rewriting, plagiarizing, things like that. We kick people out all the time. They think they will not be caught, and we catch them. And so, I mean, be smart about this, right? Don't use this against our own team. But again, I just have returned to that same thing. When you're in a business and you can see through publicly available tools that there's high demand for a certain thing, that's something you'd be interested in creating a product to meet. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not at all condoning any form of plagiarism.